Click the cloud. Happy Friday, everybody. T-Bird Nation, we're so glad to have you here on our Friday Career Connection podcast and YouTube channel. My name's Tad Brinkerhoff. I'm the Associate Vice President for Grad and Online Programs, and we're excited to have you join us today to talk about careers and how we build them and how we manage them, and especially in different industries. We're excited to have a double alum, a Southern Utah University double alum, Josh Gardner, who is the CEO and CFO of the Hope Group that focuses on behavior.
COO,
What's that?
COO, sorry.
What did I say?
CEO.
Oh, sorry. COO and CFO, lots of C's in there, C-suite. Of the Hope Group is a company that's headquartered here in Southern Utah that focuses on behavioral health. And Josh was telling me earlier they have 275 employees and they're in 4 locations. So it's a pretty impressive group. So I'm not going to spend too much time introducing Josh other than he's a true T-bird, has been around the university, married with 2 kids. Um, and we're super excited to hear about his career journey and then maybe ask questions about what it's like to work in the behavioral health space and how you build a career in that area. So we'll go ahead and turn the time over to Josh.
Thanks, Dad. I appreciate it. Yeah, so super excited to be here. I love SUU. I loved my experience there. Proud to be a T-Bird. And so this is quite the honor to be invited on the podcast today. A little bit of a background about me. I grew up in Spokane, Washington. If anybody's from the West Coast, Pacific Northwest area, Spokane, of course, is just right across the Idaho border from Coeur d'Alene. And great area. My parents, when I was about 16 years old, were looking for a change, and we had some family down in Cedar City, so we ended up moving. They stuck around for 2 years, and I ended up connecting with SUU through tracks. I'm a distance runner and still maintain that. And so ended up getting a scholarship to run at SUU. My parents took off to Idaho, and have been in the Southern Utah area ever since. And you know, sports has been a big part of my life. Distance running is really what kept me connected to higher education. Neither of my parents completed college. My mom did about an associate's degree, I think almost an associate's degree at BYU. My dad did a semester or two, ended up becoming a machinist and a welder. So I come from a family that doesn't have a lot of higher education background, and very hard workers, very honest and great people, and were great parents to me. But higher education was a little bit of a mystery. And in fact, something I probably didn't even add in my bio that I sent over to you, Tad. I was homeschooled. So I came from a family with just quite a different approach to education than what you traditionally see. And so, lucky for me, I had this connection through sports to higher education. I knew I wanted to be in business. And ever since I was, you know, probably 8 or 9 years old, the classic story, I was out trying to make money. So there was this catalog called Olympia Sales Club. They'd send it out and you'd have these, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds out selling birdhouses, doormats, kind of these random home products. In retrospect, it's pretty funny because they would actually have you collect payment from the customer. Then you would take the money back, order the product, and a few weeks later, you'd get it in the mail and go deliver it. So I remember going around knocking doors in my neighborhood, selling these just random trinkets, collecting checks. And then I got into mowing lawns. I started a window cleaning business and actually lawn mowing before I had a driver's license. I built a trailer out of plywood for my bike. So I'd pull around this trailer with a lawnmower, weed eater, trash can for the grass, and I had a little bit of a lawn mowing business. So I was very industrious, knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so, got a track that pulled me to SUU with a scholarship. And at SUU, this is another kind of funny component in my history. I don't ever remember really declaring my major. I was like, well, I know I want to do business. And I don't remember the moment where I was like, I'll do accounting, but ended up in the accounting program. Never thought twice, plowed right through it, knocked it out in 4 years, and ended up along the way becoming a member of the professional accountancy club. Of course, we got to play chess with the accountants and do nerdy things. And then later ended up being the president of the professional accountancy club. So that at the time was led by Tim Lewis, Professor Tim Lewis, if anybody remembers him, business law professor, great guy, and had a lot of cool opportunities to recruit with some of the big four accounting firms and large regional accounting firms. I ended up going to Ernst and Young full time. And I guess prior to that, I landed an internship in the Bay Area with Ernst and Young in their San Jose office, doing a tax internship. Pretty quickly, I felt like, tax is really not going to be my fit, and immediately started working towards transitioning to a different service line. Finished my internship, came back to Cedar City, wrapped up my final year of my undergraduate degree. I got hired to go to Houston, Texas with Ernst& Young in their IT advisory, which is basically IT audit, where you're making sure that the IT systems are transmitting financial information accurately and that the reporting to the top level financial systems is congruent. And so that also, just was not working out for me. And I remember feeling pretty stuck, feeling miserable going to work, and no, not trying to throw shade at Ernst& and Young or anybody in Big Four, but it just really was not a good fit for me. And about a year in, I actually got fired from the job. I was so intellectually just unable to harness any of my creativity, any of the energy that I knew I had. To me, it felt like white collar assembly line. Like they'd send me a bunch of PDF documents. I'd make sure that one number matched another one. I'd do these little red boxes and tie them together, with an arrow, save it, send it back. And that's as a staff auditor, that's kind of what you do. You're checking these numbers and make sure everything ties out. And man, an hour plus commute both ways, plus that work during busy season was just an enormous like stressor for me. Just ultimately, I couldn't perform in that environment, and it was probably right. I probably was just not performing. It wasn't a good fit for me. I ended up coming back to Cedar City, and my father-in-law had acquired a failing treatment center. So kind of just a and in retrospect, it's almost like a comedy if you could see us in those early days. Nobody had any idea what we were doing. My father-in-law was an attorney. Me and my brother-in-law both studied accounting at SUU. And then my father-in-law's paralegal had joined the organization as well. And so it was an attorney, a paralegal, and two accountants trying to run a treatment center. And so you can imagine how crazy that was. We had no idea how to hire clinical talent, what good clinical programming looked like. It's already an organization with a lot of scrutiny and PR that you have to manage, and the marketing, of course, is a whole nother ball game. But we stuck it out, and really kind of a payroll to payroll existence for the first 5 years. A lot of people talk about living paycheck to paycheck. We were payroll to payroll, and I process payroll on Tuesdays, and the ACH would often clear kind of in the middle of the night, Wednesday night to Friday morning. And I'd so often, I mean, almost every pay period, like every 2 weeks, I'd have checks coming in just in time to barely cover that payroll ACH. And so I would often like, dozens and dozens of nights, I'd wake up at 2 a.m. just stressing out, and I check our bank balance and make sure that everything was lining up so that our payroll wouldn't decline. A bunch of times we had to hold our checks. Some of our key leaders had to hold checks. Um, some of the founding team members had to hold their checks we had almost a year of held checks at one point that we had to pay back. And took us, so really about 5 years to kind of learn how to operate this business. And took a big pay cut, of course, to come back from Ernst& Young. Ernst& Young was a pretty good job and had pretty good benefits and a good income trajectory. And so I kind of have these periods in my career as in this organization that are defined with the first 5 years surviving, and then really the next probably 2 years we started to predictably be profitable, and it's like, okay, maybe we can do this. Then the next 2 years after that, we really got distracted, and we thought, hey, we know how to run businesses. Got a little bit full of ourselves, so we started an outpatient therapy practice, and we started a day treatment program, and we started a telehealth psychiatry business. And then we also started an executive recruiting firm for behavioral health. So then, 2024, we're there with about 6 or 7 businesses that we're operating, and only one of them is really profitable. One, well, kind of two are really profitable. And we're sending all this money out every month to invest in these businesses that we're trying to get off the ground. And kind of the realization hit me like, wow, like we're really getting out of our focus here and out of our core competency. And we ended up having to kind of give away some of the businesses, wind down some of the others, and narrow that focus down to what we really know how to do well, which for us is kind of inpatient behavioral health care for uh, traumatized teenagers with public pay funding. It's a very specific niche in the behavioral healthcare market. And and so it's kind of like this wild ride where, and then we got focused again, and things really came together. We've built an amazing team. Today we have 4 organizations, which is, almost half of what we had 2 years ago, but all 4 of them are profitable and thriving. And so yeah, that's a little bit about my history from homeschooler in Spokane, Washington, to COO here in Southern Utah.
I'm fascinated that an attorney decided to get into the behavioral health
Mhm.
field. What prompted your father-in-law to go in that direction, and what was it about behavioral health that attracted you?
Yeah, so for my father-in-law, I think he was so done with the contention and the conflict of law, right? I mean, that's what you do all day, every day is like, we're going to write contracts or dispute contracts or sue people, and he had a practice where he handled, you know, some divorces as well, and just kind of a variety of legal issues. And so the conflict, I think, for him ended up being a bad fit. And I think that's something that's really important for all people who are planning their career to pay attention to is, what are the environments that I thrive in? Because you want to dip into your own energy. It's already there if you just get into the right environment. A lot of people will try and force a square peg in a round hole and do something that's not a good fit for them emotionally or from a creativity perspective. And you just can't thrive. You'll never perform as a true professional if you're not in an environment that speaks to you well. So that's really, I think, what was happening for him. He was able to be a great attorney, but just muscled his way through it, right? Just had to endure it. And for him, he was representing somebody whose program was failing, and he felt like this would be my opportunity to help out kids, and he felt like he could be so passionate about that. And so that's really what triggered him taking the plunge there. As far as why did I choose to join the practice, I think early on for me, I love doing anything entrepreneurial. And so if my friends were like, "Hey, let's go try and sell this product door to door on a weekend," I'm like, "Okay, that sounds like a blast. Like, let's go knock doors and like see if we can sell this thing." Um, so it's actually kind of my kind of fun to figure out that problem. How can we create this organization that can be um, a great organization for the employees, for the customers, and the shareholders? And there's actually some themes in my life where I don't like to make trade-offs. I want all three, you know? I want to be happy, healthy, and wealthy. I don't want to pick two of those. I don't want to pick speed, price, or quality. I want to have a great price, great quality, and great speed on my products. So um, that's the tricky thing. It's the Rubik's Cube with the 10 sides or whatever. It gets really, really intricate, and I love solving that problem.
That's great. Um, we've got a question that just came in to the chat from Taylor. She says, I worked at two treatment centers in Utah and admire the dedication it takes to keep them running. How do you balance organizational goals with the mission to help people, and what leadership helps make both succeed?
Yeah, the mission has to be everything. And this is true. This is really true. And every great business starts with a great mission. And I really think like almost every problem comes back to leadership. You solve every problem through great leadership. So it's establishing a compelling mission. For us, that's, and I'll give you an example because I think our mission is really compelling. World-class trauma treatment for children who would not otherwise receive care. World-class trauma treatment, children who would not otherwise receive care. So for us, it's like we're going to identify a underserved market and create a world-class experience. Kids who come to Havenwood tend to have gone through 5 to 10 publicly funded programs, dingy, dim lighting, not a lot of space to get out and exercise. And we're like, how can we make it a world-class experience as if they were at a resort? We have purple mattresses on every bed in our program. We have equine therapy. We have rec therapy. We've got mountain bikes. A lot of the kids in our program get cell phones that we provide. That of course are filtered, and that's another whole nother problem. We could talk through how you solve some of those challenges. Um, they can earn college credit while they're in our fully accredited high school. And we have limousines. So we've got a handful of limousines, actually. We thought, how can we add style points to our business? A lot of these programs buy these big old vans. We're like, well, limousines are actually a pretty cool way to stand out here, fit just as many people. So if we have a new guest enrolling in our program, they fly into the Cedar City Airport and we swing by and grab them in the limo. And so you can see how that just can become pretty fun to solve. A lot of people, again, if you get into the space where can I endure this long enough to save up enough money so that I can retire, that's not the kind of existence that I'm really interested in. I want to live every day solving a cool problem that can make a difference for somebody in the world in just a way that is enjoyable and creative. And that's kind of like business for me is my art. It's my canvas.
That's great. Do you think you'll stay in behavioral health the rest of your career, or do you know?
Yeah, good question. I'm not sure on that yet. It's been a really fun experience so far, but I'm definitely open to all kinds of opportunities. I'm not a clinician by training, and so I think I could apply a lot of the skills that I've learned to different applications as well. And um, so there are also some other societal issues that I feel like I could address through entrepreneurship and find my own little corner of the world to help clean up with a great business. So I've got lots of thoughts on that, and but nothing really solidified.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Got another question from Jonathan. Thanks, Jonathan. Through times of success and failure, how have you learned from failure, move forward, and come out stronger on the other end? A good question.
Yeah, it's you have to kind of learn to that both and mindset. This is really painful. This is extremely hard. This is excruciating at times, and we're going to keep going. And sometimes you are just hanging on by um, your fingernails, it feels like. And but I'm so, I mean, there were so many moments, like for years and years, I thought there's no way we're going to make a great business out of this. And so I think it is a refiner's fire kind of situation, and let that teach you the attributes that can make you a really resilient, adaptable, gritty professional. Lean into it. Distance running for me, I mean, it's like a lot of sports, there's a lot of skill acquisition and then some conditioning. Maybe you're like Like baseball might be like, I don't know, I'll get the ratios wrong here, but 30% conditioning and 70% like skill acquisition. Running, distance running is 100% conditioning. It is only pain, right? Like you just go out there and we're going to suffer every day, all year round, summer, winter. And so it's kind of, I guess I was made that way.
All right, thank you. We have another question that coming in. How would you advise someone who knows they are miserable in their job but haven't yet identified what they need to be happy or what they need from their environment?
Yeah.
Sounds like you've been in that situation where E&Y wasn't giving you the satisfaction that you needed.
hmm
Um,
Yeah, for me, all of your first jobs are going to be experiments. Like don't it's so tough when you have to try and pick something early on. You're a freshman at SU, declare your major, and like project what you're going to want to do for the next 40, 50 years of your life. That's pretty tricky. So, um, if I were to advise myself, I graduated in 2015, so 11 years ago. I would say, look at everything as an experiment early on. The first few jobs are kind of trial runs, and maybe you'll hit the job you love where you can express your creativity and just feel like at least a good portion of the time is you can get into a flow state, right? Um, and if you're feeling like you're roadblocked, make a switch, right? But do some journaling and start to articulate for yourself what are the components of this job that I really do enjoy. And it might be, oh, I really enjoyed it when I got to plan this lunch for the team. At Ernst& Young during my internship, they'd have me plan lunches all the time. I'd have to like create this matrix, like pick the best restaurants with this cuisine, with these many stars within this geographic area. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. This is kind of a cool challenge. So maybe it's something like that. And you're like, okay, what are the components of planning this lunch that speak to me? And now I'm gonna because there's probably not a lot of jobs planning lunches full time, but you can start to isolate the components of those tasks that are interesting and fun and start to make a list. And it's often it's about picking the right team over the right task. So if you have to choose between doing a job you hate with people you love or a job you love with people you hate, you actually, in my opinion, you pick the job you hate with the people you love. Like I would rather so actually funny anecdote here. I was the recycling guy at SUU during my first year or two. That was one of my on-campus jobs. And me and two other guys, we drive around with one of the little maintenance vehicles and pick up the recycling from all the offices throughout SUU. And the job, that was kind of like, nothing really creative or interesting about picking up recycling, but we all spoke Portuguese. So we all served missions in Brazil. We all spoke Portuguese. We only spoke Portuguese at work, and we would just kind of like have a blast, you know, driving around campus, picking up recycling, and that was one of the funnest jobs I ever had, actually. So look for when you are interviewing, don't be someone who is only feeling like they are being vetted by the employer. You're vetting the employer as well. And be selective on the employer that you want to work with. Make a list of some of the attributes of the employer that you're looking for. And of course, that's going to show up well in a job interview. You've probably all heard the advice that you should come with questions for the employer. And so, but it's, you don't want to just make them up on the spot just to look good. Actually have questions that are meaningful to you, where you can understand what is the culture at that organization. And there's going to be a lot of different cultures that you can mesh with well, but learn to articulate that and look for that in addition to the tasks that you enjoy.
yeah, that's great advice. I really like that. I've worked with students over the years and they would start a new job and they'd come to me like a month after and they're like, "Oh, I hate this job." Which I understand. My
Mhm.
advice is always give it 6 to 18 months before you make a final decision.
Yeah.
Um, and then because sometimes you just have a bad day, right? And not every day is going to be unicorn and roses. But the other
Yeah.
thing, Oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
on that, like if you ask a child, you start teaching them how to ride a bike, and you ask them on the first day, do you like riding bikes? They're gonna be like, no, I hate riding bikes. I crashed 10 times today. That was the worst day ever. And
Yeah.
I teach my kids how to ride their bikes really early. I have both of my kids, 2 years and 3 years old, they could ride without training wheels. And they were like getting pretty annoyed that I had them out there practicing their bikes and they're crashing. And but then once they got it, my four-year old loves riding his bike. He's out riding his bike hours every day. And so now it's a different story. So I love that idea, give it a bit because you don't actually know yet.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, sometimes it's just mastery,
Mhm.
becoming more familiar. I also, early on in my career, I started when I would leave work at the end of every day, I would do an evaluation and I would make a mental note like, I'm leaving work. How do I feel? Am I satisfied? Am I happy? Or am I dissatisfied and unhappy? And when the numbers of days where I was more dissatisfied than satisfied, that's when I kind of got the signal, maybe it's time to look and reevaluate. So sometimes I think we have an expectation that every day should be happy, and it's just not going to be. But
Yeah.
if if we like you said, if we like the people we work with, if our values align with the organizational values, then sometimes it's worth sticking out. But it's a hard decision, when do I make a change?
And
Uh,
I think an additional delineation there is there's going to be a difference between like dislike of the job and just job stress too.
yeah,
Sometimes you'll really like a job and a job will be really stressful.
yeah,
And so pay attention. There's a lot of different verticals in this that are contributing to what might feel like dissatisfaction in the job, and learn to identify, oh, like I actually like this task, but I don't like the commute. So I just need to move closer. Like the commute is really what's driving me crazy.
yeah,
And it might be something that's totally unrelated to the task at work.
yeah,
Or I don't like my
yeah.
manager. So many people put the manager, not the job, right? So maybe you just need to switch departments.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I've read a statistic that that's the number one signal of job success is relationship with the manager. So, okay.
And quick tip on that. Sorry, I got a lot to say here. One-on-ones. If you are a manager, do not miss your one-on-ones. That is the number one way you keep your folks satisfied, and spend, a good 10 minutes at the beginning of that one-on-one, asking how they're doing, how are their kids, figure out when are their kids' birthdays, what are they up to, what are they struggling with, and be a support and spend that time building the relationship. And you won't have people who report to you quit because of you. If you just go straight to the task list, man, they're going to be churning like crazy. So,
Yeah, that's true. That's really true. All right, we've got a question from Fielding. Fielding, thanks for submitting. Fielding asks, you mentioned gaining experience and skills that have application anywhere you go in the future. What are some hyper specialized skills or experiences you've gained that you are particularly proud of, even if they don't seem so transferable?
yeah, so um, behavioral healthcare finance is quite unique, where just the dealing with insurance, revenue cycle management. There's some components to the way the financial model works. They're going to be a lot different than e-commerce or manufacturing or any other business you might run into. So I've been able to master kind of a unique um, skill there, and this has turned into a bit of a side hustle where actually another T-Bird SU alumni, Tyler Edgel. If anybody knows Tyler Edgel, he is my partner in a business called Behavioral Healthcare CFOs, where we do fractional CFO work for behavioral healthcare programs all over the country. So we've got programs in Oregon, California, Louisiana, Maine, Minnesota, um, just kind of all over that we work with and provide all the CFO function for them. And I started off years ago. And by the way, I've always worked my full-time job and then I've done something at night. Even at Ernst& Young, I did an Amazon business in the evening while I was at Ernst& Young. And so this has actually turned into a pretty good little business. And my partner there, Tyler Edgel, is full-time there. And that's his full-time gig, and he's doing a great job serving about 8 different behavioral healthcare businesses across the US. So yeah, you can develop these little specialty skills, and there's an extremely long tail statistically um, in commerce, and you're going to be able to apply that. It might be, you know how to build the Power BI dashboards for some unique subset of some random business. That alone could be a full-time job for you or a consultancy. There's so many opportunities for that if you so use your full-time job to master something where you're at, something niche, and take the opportunities to do things like present at conferences and share that knowledge, post on LinkedIn, really powerful ways to just build your expertise over time.
Yeah, excellent. Um, let's pivot a little bit. I'm curious in your industry, how is AI affecting what you do? Are you using AI in the behavioral health field in what you're doing?
Oh yeah, we're big time. It's I wouldn't say the field itself is in mass adopting it, but I'm a huge believer in that technology is a very high leverage tool to use. So there's some really easy things to use it in, like clinical note documentation. So you can there's a bunch of AI tools where you can record therapy sessions, and it'll write the therapy note based on the conversation with the clinician. Psychiatry. Um, Another good application for us has been giving access to our employees to company documents. Like we're a G Suite organization. We're all on Google, and Google Gemini has these customized chats, kind of like a GPT with Chat GPT, and we can upload all of our policies and procedures and employee handbook and things like this, so that employees have a really easy to navigate chat. So um, and then, of course, there's all these other ways to use AI, but just thinking through complex issues and being able to explore kind of the corners of the argument. What have I missed here? So I'm in AI hours every single day and looking at every single AI tool. I subscribe to a bunch of newsletters with, AI functionality, and we're trying to adopt and apply everything we could find.
That's interesting. So in my last job, we used AI, we implemented AI for leadership coaching. And you could train the model on your leadership philosophy, and people could put scenarios, you could do role playing, with leadership scenarios. And it made me wonder, will we use AI as our therapist? Um,
I
uh,
think most people are. I think most people are using, they might not be naming the chat their therapist, but they're certainly saying, my girlfriend, my boyfriend, is saying this, what should I say? Is that, I think that's already really widespread, people navigating personal issues, mental health issues with AI.
do you think that threatens your business at all, your business model?
No, our business model, um, so I think this is just an important concept generally, but if you want to create a moat, a competitive moat where competitors can't come and steal your business, you have to be really good at something that is hard to be good at. And we are really good at keeping kids safe who are extremely unsafe on their own. And AI can't do that yet, at least. So I feel pretty confident that's a skill set that is going to be really hard for AI to take over. Um, and so that's kind of where we've carved out our specialty. So I'm not feeling too threatened there.
Yeah. Someone in the chat wanted to know, which tool do you use for the clinical notes? Can you share that?
Yeah, so there's one called Videra Health, and I don't know if there's like a consumer package available here, but Videra Health is a really cool AI application, in fact, where we're not using this specific module yet, but they can actually perform suicide assessments where you're measuring the suicidality of a patient using their tone of voice, their facial expressions, and it's more accurate than most. I I can't remember the accuracy rate, but I remember that their pitch at least is that it is better at assessing suicidality simply by watching a quick video clip than a lot of the standardized suicide assessments that people deploy. So there's some really fascinating AI use cases in mental health that give clinicians additional tools.
Yeah, interesting. it'll be interesting to see if AI improves our mental health or makes it worse.
Yeah.
Hopefully it will be an improvement as a whole. Let me ask you about crisis management because that's one thing we have a lot of treatment centers in Utah, a lot of youth treatment centers, and I think they do a lot of good actually, and I'm
Mhm.
glad that Utah has that reputation. But there are cases where there's some negative publicity. Sometimes people are like, not in my backyard kind of attitude. How do you deal with the crisis management or the negative publicity that sometimes might be generated by a patient that has a client who maybe has challenges? How have you dealt with that as a COO?
Yeah, I think step one is transparency. So there's no benefit to trying to sweep it all under the rug. It always comes back to bite you. So we actually we've had our fair share of incidents in our program that have had scrutiny, especially in our early days. And so we have a whole page on our website it details here's what happened, here's how we responded, here's how we report to licensing, and you can read through every issue our program has had. And behavioral health for folks who have worked in behavioral health, it's a tricky business to be in. It's very difficult. I see Taylor maybe here nodding. Um, so and no matter where you're at, it's inevitable that something's going to happen where you might have something like an environmental concern, or you might have who knows, you might have an employee on the road who gets in a car accident on the clock. um, those things are going to happen. So being transparent, having a very rapid response, you really want to sprint at the problem. Like it's pedal to when you have a PR issue, you start sprinting and you get the press. You've got one chance to control the narrative. And so you want to get out in front of it, self-disclose everything, be as transparent as you possibly can. Get legal counsel to review it, of course. But then you're gonna have to fight with legal because they're gonna want you to be a little bit more tight-lipped than what might be helpful from a PR perspective and how people will emotionally respond. So yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents there. I think just own it, own it, move forward, fix it, don't do it again, and let it level you up. That's what we've done. When licensing, the state of Utah has a really rigorous oversight over treatment centers with their Department of Licensing. If they come into one of our programs and identify something, we'll often put like 10 fixes into place within 24 or 48 hours. And then we send them the whole list. Here are all the fixes we put into place. We'll send them pictures, we'll send them, documentation. And then we try to never mess up on that thing again. But it's like Swiss cheese, Swiss cheese has holes in it. You got to stack layers to permanently prevent things from getting through. And, but that's kind of our approach at the Hope Group.
Yeah, interesting. That's got to be challenging. Well, I'm kind of curious. Why do you think Utah is such a center for these youth treatment facilities? What is it about Utah that attracts that kind of industry? And am I fair in making that assessment? That's what I perceive is that Utah has a higher rate of these type of facilities than other states.
Yeah, what? I honestly have not done enough research to truly understand that dynamic. There's definitely probably more programs per capita than you normally find. And interestingly, we serve almost zero Utah teens. Yeah, they're almost all national. We have favorable licensing in a favorable licensing environment, or at least historically we did. It's much more challenging today, which is why we still have in-house counsel and a full-time licensor on our staff to navigate that. So you end up almost in every business these days, you're going to be navigating a lot of red tape, and so important to consider. But um, yeah, so we historically have had favorable licensing, and I think we've had a lot of clinicians in the state and some good higher education, especially in northern Utah. You're producing a lot of college graduates who are available to support those types of needs. So yeah, kind of an interesting question. I can't fully answer.
Yeah. As someone who's lived outside of Utah for a number of years, that was always kind of the thing we heard is Utah was this mecca of youth treatment facilities, and I've always wondered why. I have my theories, but before we get to Val's question, I do want to ask if someone's listening to this and thinking about maybe they're a psychology major and think they want to go into behavioral health or have behavior treatment. What advice would you have for them as they explore the field? What makes someone a good fit for working in behavioral health types of fields as a practitioner?
Yeah, so we like to, when we're hiring people, we like to look for qualities and attributes first. Competencies are going to be important, and actual skills like are you good at Microsoft Excel? That might be important, but primarily we want to know, is this individual going to be um, in our core values? Will they promote team health? Are they gritty? Do they have demonstrate extreme ownership? And so we're looking to identify those. And if you break it down in like psychology, you could use like the big five personality traits. So I like to look for people who are high in curiosity, who are high in conscientiousness, who are resilient, and ideally, although this tends not to be the case, actually, low in neuroticism. So neuroticism is your propensity to experience negative emotions. If you're high in neuroticism and you're in a psychiatric environment, it can be quite stressful. So it's a chaotic environment. And if you're already predisposed to experience that at a high level, that can be tricky. Although on the flip side, often that just gives you that empathy for those folks because you may have been in that place emotionally. So that's kind of the attribute profile I like to look for. If you're looking for the right fit, though, yeah, you just try and intern it at a lot of different places. Find out what is the patient profile that you could really feel passionate about working with. There's a lot of different sectors, segments of behavioral health, whether that be substance abuse or pure mental health, or adults or adolescents, autism. There's a lot of different opportunities there, and so get some, kind of that experimentation piece of the career early on. Make sure you try out a handful of things so you can figure out this is the right fit for me.
Good, good. Thank you. Okay, Val's question. I can see how your younger experiences with entrepreneurship planted seeds for future success. Regarding long distance running, what did you learn and how have those life lessons translated into your successes today?
Yeah, that's a tough one because this could be a full podcast. I could just, I mean, this could be like multiple episodes that I could talk about long distance running. Um, I think one lesson that would be just be broadly applicable is find a hobby that gives you friends, makes you happy, and keeps you healthy. If you can find a hobby that does those three things for you, that's going to serve you for your whole life. And so look for something like that in your life. Um, I think on the health note, make an effort to stay like there are going to be years, especially early on in your career, if you're choosing to have children, where it feels like it's impossible to excel professionally and stay healthy and manage your personal life. It can be really tricky. I would say probably mid 20s to late 30s. That's probably where you're going to be like completely maxed out on personal responsibility. Perhaps young children, starting a career, and then you're like, and I need to exercise too. Yes, actually, because it is really tough to get that back. If you get to 40 years old and you didn't, and you kind of neglected yourself for 15 years, very, very difficult to get back in the swing of things. And so one thing I'm just super grateful that I've been able to persist in is that distance running. So the last year I ran college track was 2014, and I've run a sub 5 mile every year since then. That's kind of like my annual tradition. And I'm like, how many years can I keep this going? And so figure out like what is your own personal way of doing that. Definitely doesn't have to be distance running. A lot of people detest distance running. So it can be tennis or it can be swimming or whatever. But something like that can really serve you in a lot of ways, mental health, in your career. You'll make connections. So there's a little bit of an answer to that question.
Yeah. It sounds like exercise or running is something you do for your own mental health. Is there anything else that you do for your own mental health that you would recommend? I mean, it sounds like you're probably in a stressful job.
Mhm.
What advice do you have for those of us who maybe want to improve our mental health?
Yeah, I'm very passionate about the philosophy of Stoicism. If you're familiar with Stoicism, Stoicism is this idea that I am going to live my life and be as virtuous as I possibly can in kind of the classical virtues, justice, temperance, wisdom. And then I'm going to let go of a lot of the outcomes. I'm going to engage at my best with my best efforts within my locus of control. And then I'm going to practice strategically letting go of the outcome. So most of the angst occurs when you have a significant gap between your expectations and your reality. And if you place expectations on the outcomes, it just your outcome expectation can outpace your reality so quickly. I mean, I can right in this moment, I can say, my expectation is that I have a yacht in the Caribbean, and I'm probably not going to get it, and I can make myself miserable wishing for that. Or I can say my goal today is to um, focus and deliver on these key priorities in my job and to get some movement. I actually had a guy in passing mention to me this idea of hit a home run every single day. And that hit home run for me might be adding a new KPI, key performance indicator, to a dashboard for one of the subsidiary programs in our group so that they have a little bit more information. And I can go home feeling like that was an awesome day. I moved the ball forward a little bit. So yeah, I think um, something that we miss in the age of social media is remembering like work on the inputs. Don't worry about the outputs so much. The outputs will come. It's just it's a winding path.
Yeah, interesting. I like that a lot. Yeah, I had a really good friend from Hawaii. She used to always say, set your expectations really low and you'll never be disappointed.
Yeah.
I don't know if I completely agree with that, but that was her philosophy.
Well,
Um,
I think it's an Amazon, or maybe it's a Jeff Bezos line. Strong opinions held loosely, right? Like work really hard, but you're loose on the outcome. I mean, you can still adapt and be resilient and be flexible because life is going to be really dynamic.
yeah, so true. We've got just a few minutes left. I would love to hear your thoughts on where you think the behavioral health industry is going. I know there's like substance abuse. We hear a lot about that in the news, autism. Where is the industry going in the next 5 to 10 years? And what opportunities does that offer for people interested in that field?
Mhm. I think if I look at macro trends, the Lindy effect is the idea that something, the duration of something, or the historical longevity of something is likely highly correlated with the future duration. So we've always needed some kind of safe place for people with severe mental health issues in society. So I don't think it's going anywhere quickly. If you're a parent who has a teenager who is suicidal, who is making active suicide attempts, who is running away from home constantly, who is self-harming. Um, People who criticize behavioral health have never been in that spot where they are sleeping in shifts as parents to make sure their child is safe. And that is still going on all over the place. Parents are in that predicament. And so, as far as the overall outlook, we've had a bit of a uh, um, contraction in the market in behavioral health. There are far fewer programs today than there were 3 or 4 years ago. And I think that will rebound just because the need it still persists. So we may still need to weather, the current funding around with Medicaid and Medicare and behavioral health has been impacted with the big beautiful bill. So we'll see how that hits us over the next few years. But I think specialized treatment will always be there. You're also going to see an increase in regulation. And so preparing to operate within a more challenging regulatory environment is just going to keep getting more and more regulated. So that would be what I would say as far as outlook and what to look for and be prepared for.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for that analysis. I think that's all the questions I have. Any other last minute questions anybody want to ask? Okay. Well, Josh, thank you so much for joining us. I applaud you for the good work you're doing. Mental health, behavioral health is so important. And I'm glad that we're talking about it a lot more than we have in the past. And I think you're doing a service. You're not only doing good, but you're being a successful business person as well. So, and we're glad you're part of our T-Bird Nation. So
Happy to be
thanks
here.
for your time.
Thanks so much.
Um, Everybody, next week we'll be hearing from Brent Jensen, who is an expert in entrepreneurship through acquisition. So Brent, he buys businesses and improves them. And so it'll be interesting. That's an interesting field, and we'll hear from him next week. So we'll see you next week on Friday at noon. And in the meantime, have a great weekend. Enjoy the Super Bowl if you're into football. It should be fun. And we'll see some of you at the gymnastics meet tonight as we take on BYU. Thanks, everybody. Bye bye.